In the year 2321, Earth had become a shadow of its former self, ravaged by decades of interstellar warfare and environmental neglect. The invaders, a relentless alien species known as the Corvin, had swept across Earth's defenses, their advanced technology and ruthless tactics leaving humanity's armies in ruins. City after city had fallen, until it seemed nothing of the human race would survive. The last hope of mankind lay hidden beneath the ice of the Arctic Circle, in a secretive facility known only as the Ark. Built in the early 22nd century, the Ark was part of a desperate contingency plan, a cryogenic chamber housing Earth's most elite soldiers and thinkers, preserved in stasis until a time when they could fight back. These were the Arctic Chamber super soldiers, enhanced by cutting-edge genetics and cybernetic augmentations, trained to operate in the harshest conditions imaginable. As the Corvin began to terraform the Earth to suit their alien biology, the automated systems within the Ark detected the drastic changes in the atmospheric composition and surface temperature. Algorithms concluded that the survival threshold for any remaining human life was fast approaching. The decision was made. It was time for the super soldiers to awake. The process began deep in the heart of the icy fortress. Thousands of pods hummed to life, breaking the silence that had persisted for nearly a century. Ice crystallized on the surfaces began to thaw, revealing the figures of men and women encased within. Captain Elena Mirov was among the first to awaken. As the stasis fluid drained from her pod, she gasped her first breath of cold, recycled air. Her body convulsed slightly as the revival protocols injected her bloodstream with adrenaline and essential nutrients to accelerate her recovery. Screens blinked to life around her, displaying tactical data and the grim reality of the world outside. Elena's mind cleared quickly, combat training and strategic protocols snapping back into place as if no time had passed. She recalled the final days before she entered the Ark. The fall of New Moscow, the retreat to the Arctic, the tears of her comrades as they sealed the chamber. And then, nothing until now. She emerged from her pod, her muscles stiff but rapidly regaining their former strength. Around her, other soldiers were experiencing the same revival, each one equipped with the latest in military exoskeletons and bio-enhanced abilities, ready to reclaim their planet or die trying. The Ark's AI, Ariel, briefed them on the current situation. The Corvin had established dominance over the majority of the Earth's surface, depleting its natural resources and eradicating any form of resistance. However, they hadn't expected humanity to strike back from beneath the ice. Captain Mirov met with her lieutenants, Thomas and Lee, in the command center, a vast room lined with screens and equipment that buzzed with activity. The walls displayed real-time satellite imagery of Corvin strongholds and troop movements. They needed a plan, and fast. "Our first objective is reconnaissance," Elena stated, her voice echoing slightly in the chamber. "We need to assess their forces, weaknesses, and any remaining human enclaves. We strike swiftly and silently, gather allies, and begin guerrilla warfare. We have the element of surprise on our side. Let's use it." The soldiers nodded in agreement, their expressions grim but determined. They were the last line of defense, Earth's final shot at redemption. As they geared up, checking their weapons and systems, the mood was solemn but hopeful. Elena looked around at her team, their faces lit by the soft glow of the command center's screens. "Humanity has endured much," she said, her voice steady and strong. "But we are resilient. We fight not just for survival, but for our home, for Earth." With that, the super soldiers of the Arctic Chamber set out from their glacial haven, moving like ghosts across the frozen wasteland. They were few, but they were ready. The battle for Earth was about to begin anew. The icy winds howled outside the protective barriers of the Ark as Captain Elena Mirov and her team ventured into the bleak Arctic landscape. Their mission was clear: gather as much intelligence on the Corvin forces as possible. The snow crunched under the weight of their boots, equipped with thermal regulators to combat the extreme cold. Each soldier carried a high-tech arsenal, but perhaps their most vital tool was the stealth technology integrated into their suits, rendering them nearly invisible to the naked eye. As they moved south, the devastation wrought by the Corvin became increasingly apparent. Once thriving cities had been reduced to ruins, their architectures twisted to suit the alien occupiers' needs. The Earth's atmosphere buzzed with the energy of Corvin machinery, transforming the planet's ecosystem into something unrecognizable and hostile to human life. Their first destination was a small Corvin outpost located on the outskirts of what was once Oslo. According to Ariel's data, the outpost was not heavily guarded, but contained communication arrays that could provide valuable insights into enemy operations. Lieutenant Thomas led the infiltration, guiding the team through the labyrinth of ice and rock until the angular metallic structures of the outpost loomed ahead. Using a series of hand signals, Elena directed her team to fan out, taking cover behind the jagged ice formations. They observed the outpost. A few Corvin soldiers patrolled the perimeter, their movements mechanical and precise, their alien forms stark against the snow. Lee, the team's communications expert, set up a portable hacking device, tapping into the outpost's network. The device whirred softly, lights blinking as it bypassed alien encryption protocols. "Got it," Lee whispered through the comms. "Downloading data now." The team held their breaths, watching as the download progress inched forward. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing sound cut through the air, the alert of a detected intrusion. "They know we're here," Elena hissed. "Move!" What followed was a blur of motion. The team retreated as Corvin soldiers converged on their position. Gunfire erupted, the distinct crackle of energy weapons slicing through the cold air. Elena and her team returned fire, their weapons muted thuds barely audible under the howling wind. Despite the setback, Lee managed to secure a significant chunk of data. The team fought their way out of the encirclement, using their superior tactics and the rough terrain to their advantage. They left the outpost behind, the sounds of alarms fading into the distance as they made their way back to the safety of the Ark. Back in the command center, the team analyzed the data Lee had retrieved. It revealed several key pieces of information: the locations of major Corvin bases, supply routes, and most importantly, potential weaknesses in their global communication network. "We have what we need to start planning our attacks," Elena said, reviewing the maps displayed on the screens. "But there's more. It looks like there are human survivors, resistance groups scattered around the globe. They've been fighting, hiding." This news sparked a new energy in the room. The presence of other human fighters meant there was hope. Hope that they could unite the scattered forces into a formidable resistance. "Let's reach out to them," suggested Tomas, his eyes alight with the prospect of allies. "Together we might just turn the tide." Elena nodded in agreement. "Prepare for the next phase. We're not just going to hit the Corvin, we're going to start taking back our planet." Determination set in their hearts. The team began preparations for their next move. They were no longer just survivors. They were the vanguard of Earth's resistance, and they were ready to fight back with everything they had. With the intelligence gathered from the Corvin outpost, Captain Elena Mirov and her team set to work, planning their next moves with meticulous care. Their primary goal was clear: establish contact with the human resistance groups scattered across the globe. These groups, though small and under-equipped, were vital allies in the fight against the Corvin. Elena's team expanded their operations within the Ark, turning it into a central hub for resistance activities. They enhanced their communication systems, using the weaknesses identified in the Corvin's network to their advantage. Each message sent out was a beacon of hope, a call to arms for those who believed the fight for Earth was not yet lost. As responses from the resistance groups trickled in, a patchwork of survivor enclaves began to form on their strategic maps. There were scientists in the ruins of Tokyo, guerrilla fighters holding out in the jungles of Brazil, and a group of engineers who had taken refuge in the underground tunnels of Paris. Each group had managed to survive through resilience and ingenuity, and each was a potential cornerstone in the rebuilding of a global resistance network. Elena decided to personally lead a mission to the closest group, located in the ruins of London. The city, once a bustling metropolis, was now a shadow of its former self, with its iconic landmarks twisted into alien structures. The journey was perilous. The team had to navigate through Corvin-patrolled territories and avoid detection by their surveillance drones. Upon reaching the outskirts of London, Elena and her team were met with a cautious reception. The resistance fighters, led by a hardened veteran named Harris, had been surviving through hit-and-run tactics against Corvin's supply lines. Harris and his group had seen too many false dawns and were initially skeptical of the promises made by the Arctic soldiers. Elena spent days with them, sharing knowledge, tactics, and the data stolen from the Corvin. Slowly, mutual respect was forged, and plans were drawn up for a coordinated strike against a nearby Corvin energy hub. The operation would not only cripple the alien occupiers, but also serve as a demonstration of their combined strength and the effectiveness of working together. The night of the operation, Elena and Harris led their combined forces under the cover of darkness. The Corvin energy hub was heavily guarded, but the resistance fighters were driven by a newfound hope and a fierce determination to reclaim their home. They infiltrated the facility with precision, planting explosives and sabotaging key components. The explosion that followed lit up the night sky, a fiery symbol of defiance. The hub was destroyed, causing a chain reaction of power failures in Corvin operations across southern England. More importantly, it sent a clear message to all human survivors. The resistance was real, and it was fighting back. In the aftermath, more groups reached out, bolstered by the news of the victory. Elena's strategy began to take shape, focusing on disrupting Corvin operations while rebuilding human infrastructure. Each successful operation added layers to their growing resistance network, weaving together a tapestry of rebellion that spanned continents. Back at the Ark, celebrations were muted. They had won a significant victory, but the war was far from over. The Corvin would retaliate, and the resistance had to be ready. Elena reviewed the reports and prepared for the next phase of operations, knowing that each step forward was another step towards reclaiming Earth. As they planned their next moves, the team was more united than ever, their resolve hardened by each victory, each new ally. They were no longer just fighting for survival, they were fighting to win. With the network of human resistance groups strengthened and more organized, Captain Elena Mirov set her sights on a more ambitious target, a major Corvin command center located in the heart of what was once Berlin. The facility was not just a military outpost, but also a communications hub, coordinating Corvin operations across Europe. Disrupting it would severely impair their ability to respond to resistance activities, giving humans a significant tactical advantage. Elena convened a strategy meeting with leaders from various resistance cells across the continent, facilitated by secure communications from the Ark. The meeting was a mosaic of the remaining human spirit. Faces on screens, each representing a fragment of Earth's once diverse cultures, now united under a common cause. The plan was complex, involving simultaneous strikes on multiple Corvin facilities to divert their forces, followed by a concentrated attack on the Berlin command center. Elena divided the groups into teams based on their skills and geographical locations. Some were tasked with sabotage missions, others with gathering further intelligence, and the main assault force would strike the command center. Preparations took weeks. Weapons were smuggled through underground networks, explosive devices crafted in secret workshops, and routes meticulously mapped to avoid Corvin patrols. Meanwhile, Ariel, the Ark's AI, continuously analyzed satellite imagery to update the teams on Corvin troop movements. Finally, the day of the operation arrived. The resistance was as ready as they would ever be. In the pre-dawn hours, the diversionary teams moved out, hitting a power station in Prague, a fuel depot in Lyon, and a communications relay in Milan. As expected, the Corvin response was swift. Redirecting their forces to these locations, their attention diverted from Berlin. Elena led the main assault team herself. The streets of Berlin were eerily quiet as they advanced through the city, the once bustling boulevards now lined with alien architecture. The Corvin had transformed the city into a stronghold, with sensor towers and patrol drones monitoring every corner. The team used every trick they had learned, from cloaking devices to electronic scramblers, to evade detection as they neared the command center. The attack was launched at dawn. Explosives detonated in a coordinated sequence, tearing holes in the facility's defenses. Resistance fighters poured into the breach, engaging Corvin soldiers in fierce combat. The aliens were caught off guard. their responses sluggish without the guidance of their central command. Elena fought at the forefront, her combat exoskeleton enhancing her strength and speed. Each move she made was precise, each order clear and decisive. The resistance fighters followed her lead, their morale boosted by her unyielding spirit. Inside the command center, they encountered stiff resistance. The Corvin, realizing the importance of the facility, rallied their forces in a desperate attempt to repel the attackers. The battle was brutal, the corridors of the facility echoing with the sounds of gunfire, shouts, and the metallic clang of alien technology being destroyed. After hours of intense fighting, the resistance secured the command center. They quickly set about planting explosives to destroy the facility permanently, ensuring it could not be used again by the Corvin. As they retreated from the facility, the explosives detonated behind them, sending a towering column of fire and smoke into the sky. It was a monumental victory, celebrated across the resistance network. The loss of the Berlin Command Center disoriented the Corvin forces in Europe, giving the human resistance much-needed breathing room to consolidate and plan their next moves. Elena watched the smoke rise from the ruins of the facility, aware that this victory was just one step towards the ultimate goal of reclaiming Earth. There was much more to do, and the path ahead was fraught with challenges. But for now, they had delivered a significant blow to the enemy, and that was a reason to hope. For the first time since the awakening, Elena allowed herself a small smile. It wasn't just about survival anymore. They were beginning to turn the tide. The destruction of the Corvin Command Center in Berlin had sent shockwaves through the alien occupiers' ranks, severely disrupting their communications and operational capabilities in Europe. The victory was more than a tactical success. It was a symbol of the burgeoning strength of the human resistance, a signal to survivors everywhere that the tide was indeed turning. For Captain Elena Mirov, it was a vindication of her leadership and strategy, but also a reminder of the long and difficult road ahead. In the weeks following the Berlin operation, Elena focused on consolidating the resistance's gains while expanding their network. Her next objective was to establish a more permanent base of operations that could serve as a hub for resistance activities, not just in Europe but globally. The chosen location was deep in the Scottish Highlands, an area with natural defenses and sufficient isolation from Corvin patrols. As they set about building the base, reports came in from across the globe of similar victories and increasing resistance activities. In North America, a group of fighters had succeeded in liberating a small town in the Rockies from Corvin control, turning it into another stronghold for human survivors. In Asia, guerrilla tactics had severely hampered alien efforts to mine essential resources. Each success, no matter how small, was a step towards reclaiming Earth. Meanwhile, at the Ark, Elena and her team worked tirelessly to analyze data captured from the Berlin Command Center before its destruction. Among the troves of tactical information, they discovered references to a potential Corvin weakness, an apparent dependency on a rare mineral critical for their technology, primarily sourced from mines in Africa. Seizing on this information, Elena planned a two-pronged strategy. First, to attack and shut down these mines, depriving the Corvin of a vital resource. Second, to attempt communication with the Corvin, to negotiate or mislead them, depending on the response. It was a bold move, but she believed it necessary to test the waters for any possible advantage. The operation to disrupt the mining operations was led by Lieutenant Tomas, who had become adept at organizing and executing complex missions. His team included experts in explosives and sabotage, alongside several volunteers from the newly liberated towns who were eager to contribute to the resistance's efforts. As Tomas and his team departed for Africa, Elena initiated the risky attempt to communicate with the Corvin. Using the communication protocols gleaned from the Berlin Center, she crafted a message that was part diplomatic overture, part deception. The message proposed a ceasefire and negotiations, intending to buy time and perhaps sow confusion among the Corvin ranks. The response to her message came quicker than expected. The Corvin, recognizing the human signature in the transmission, replied with a terse demand for unconditional surrender. But buried within the harsh words, Elena detected a note of caution. perhaps an indication that the recent human offensives had caused more disruption than they had let on. Emboldened by this subtle hint of Corvin uncertainty, Elena doubled down on her support for Tomas's mission in Africa. Meanwhile, she rallied her forces for more direct confrontations, planning strikes against Corvin's strongholds that were now less coordinated and more vulnerable due to the communications disruptions. Back in Africa, Thomas's team reached the mining site, heavily guarded but less so than expected, likely a result of stretched Corvin resources. The operation was swift and successful, setting back the Corvin's technological capabilities and boosting human morale. As news of the successful mine sabotage reached Elena, she felt a surge of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, humanity could win back their planet. Each victory, each act of defiance was reshaping the fate of Earth, forging a new future from the ashes of despair. The resistance was growing, becoming a force to be reckoned with. Elena knew the war was far from over, but she also knew that humanity was not fighting alone anymore. They were together, and they were stronger. As the Resistance's victories began to accumulate, so did their responsibilities and the scale of their operations. Captain Elena Mirov, ever vigilant, was aware that their successes had also escalated the stakes. The Corvin, though reeling from the recent blows, would undoubtedly regroup and retaliate with increased ferocity. It was a cycle of war that Elena knew all too well, but she was determined to stay one step ahead. The Scottish Highlands base had evolved from a rudimentary outpost into a fortified command center, buzzing with activity. It was here that Elena and her leadership council convened to plan the next phase of the global resistance effort. The room was a hive of strategic discussions, with digital maps projecting ongoing operations and potential targets. Elena introduced a new initiative, Operation Stormbreaker. The plan was to launch a series of coordinated attacks on Corvin supply lines and manufacturing facilities across the world. By disrupting these, the Resistance aimed to weaken Corvin operations further and prevent them from mounting a significant counteroffensive. Simultaneously, Elena wanted to enhance the communication and coordination among the disparate Resistance cells. A unified command structure was necessary to orchestrate the kind of widespread rebellion she envisioned. To this end, she appointed regional commanders, each responsible for organizing and leading operations within their designated areas, reporting directly to her. As preparations for Operation Stormbreaker were underway, an unexpected opportunity presented itself. A high-ranking Corvin officer was captured by Resistance fighters during a skirmish near what was once Paris. The officer, known as Commander Cyril, was brought to the Scottish Highlands base under strict security. Elena decided to personally interrogate Cyril. During the interrogation, she learned valuable insights about the Corvin's command hierarchy and their strategic vulnerabilities. Cyril, under pressure and facing the reality of the Resistance's capabilities, disclosed that the Corvin were experiencing difficulties adapting to Earth's evolving environment, contrary to their initial terraforming successes. Armed with this new information, Elena adjusted her strategy. She realized that the Corvin were not as invincible as they seemed, and that their adaptation processes could be further disrupted. She also understood the importance of psychological warfare. Sowing doubt among the Corvin ranks could be just as effective as physical strikes. Operation Stormbreaker commenced with a series of rapid, hard-hitting attacks. Resistance fighters, now better organized and more confident than ever, carried out missions with precision and determination. Supply depots, transport convoys, and manufacturing hubs were hit across the globe, from the deserts of Australia to the forests of Siberia. The Corvin's response was sluggish and uncoordinated, their command structure evidently compromised by the constant pressure from the Resistance. Reports of Corvin units retreating or surrendering began to filter in, boosting the morale of human fighters worldwide. Meanwhile, Elena initiated a propaganda campaign using the information gleaned from Commander Zero. Broadcasts detailing the Corvin's vulnerabilities and showcasing the successes of the human resistance were transmitted globally, not just to human survivors but also to the Corvin forces. This psychological tactic intended to demoralize the enemy and encourage defection or surrender. As the dust settled from the initial wave of Operation Stormbreaker, the global resistance network had grown stronger, and more cohesive. The successes of the coordinated strikes demonstrated the effectiveness of a united human front against the alien occupiers. In the command center, as reports of their victories came pouring in, Elena allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. The storm they had gathered was unleashing its fury, and for the first time in many years, the future seemed a little brighter. The fight was far from over, but hope was on the horizon, a testament to the resilience and courage of humanity. The global resistance under Captain Elena Mirov's command had now reached a crucial juncture. Operation Stormbreaker had inflicted severe disruptions on Corvin operations, leading to significant gains for the resistance. With the enemy weakened, Elena saw an opportunity not just for continued harassment but for a major offensive that could potentially turn the tide of the war. In the command center in the Scottish Highlands, the atmosphere was charged with a mix of determination and anticipation. The walls were lined with digital screens displaying strategic data and live feeds from various parts of the world. Elena stood before her leadership council, outlining the next phase of their campaign. Operation Liberation. Operation Liberation isn't just about attacking, it's about reclaiming and holding, Elena explained. We've pushed them back, disrupted their supply lines, and sown confusion. Now we take back our cities, our homes. We show the Corvin and the world that Earth belongs to humanity. The operation was ambitious, involving coordinated strikes aimed at liberating key cities around the globe. The first targets included New York, Moscow, and Tokyo, cities that symbolized significant cultural and strategic value. Elena divided her forces into 3 main contingents, each tasked with liberating one of these urban centers. The preparation phase was intense. In the Highlands, training drills were conducted day and night. Elena's forces were bolstered by new recruits, survivors who had been inspired by the Resistance's recent victories. These new fighters brought with them not just numbers, but a renewed spirit that invigorated the seasoned soldiers. In the lead-up to the operation, Elena also sought to fortify the alliances with various resistance cells across the globe. Secure communication lines buzzed with tactical discussions, and supplies were shared to ensure that all units were adequately equipped for the upcoming battles. Finally, Operation Liberation commenced under the cover of darkness, synchronizing with local resistance movements in each target city. In New York, resistance fighters surged through the streets, engaging Corvin forces in intense urban warfare. The city, once a bustling metropolis now marked by alien architecture and oppressive surveillance devices, echoed with the sound of gunfire and the cries of battle. In Moscow, the fight was equally fierce. The resistance used the city's extensive underground systems to their advantage, striking from below and catching the Corvin off guard. Meanwhile, in Tokyo, technologically enhanced soldiers deployed hacking tools to disrupt the alien communication networks, creating chaos among the occupiers' ranks. The battles raged for days, but the human forces, driven by a desperate desire for liberation and fueled by tactical prowess, slowly gained ground. The Corvin, struggling to cope with the multi-front assaults and the unexpected ferocity of the human attacks, began to retreat. Back at the command center, Elena monitored the progress of each front, ready to provide strategic support where needed. The reports coming in were increasingly optimistic, and as each city was slowly reclaimed, cheers erupted among the personnel. The liberation of New York, Moscow, and Tokyo marked a turning point in the war. The successful operations provided a significant morale boost to resistance fighters worldwide and demonstrated the feasibility of reclaiming and holding territory from the Corvin. Elena knew that the war was far from over. The Corvin would not give up their hold on Earth easily, and they still controlled vast areas across the planet. However, Operation Liberation had shown that the resistance was capable of not just surviving, but prevailing. In the aftermath of the battles, as Elena walked through the command center, her team members approached her with updates and words of gratitude. She nodded, acknowledging their contributions, but her eyes were fixed on the screens showing the liberated cities. "There's more to do," she said quietly to her second-in-command, Lieutenant Tomas. "We've shown them our strength, and now we must build on it. We prepare for the next phase. We continue to fight until Earth is free." After the sweeping successes of Operation Liberation, Captain Elena Mirov's focus shifted from mere survival to restoration and governance. The reclaimed cities of New York, Moscow, and Tokyo stood as beacons of hope, but also as stark reminders of the devastation wrought by years of alien occupation and warfare. The task ahead was monumental: rebuild these urban centers and re-establish them as functioning societies. Elena established headquarters in each city, appointing trusted commanders as provisional governors tasked with overseeing reconstruction efforts. These leaders were not just military officers, but also skilled administrators, chosen for their ability to inspire and manage large groups of people under challenging conditions. In New York, the focus was on clearing debris and restoring critical infrastructure. Teams worked tirelessly to repair roads, bridges, and public transportation systems to facilitate movement and aid distribution. Power plants were a priority, as electricity was essential for other reconstruction activities and for improving living conditions for the city's returning inhabitants. Moscow presented different challenges. The harsh climate exacerbated the difficulties of rebuilding. Elena's team implemented emergency housing solutions using modular and rapidly deployable shelters equipped with insulation and heating systems to protect against the cold. They also focused on securing food supplies, converting abandoned Corvin structures into greenhouses for year-round crop production. Tokyo turned into a hub of technological recovery. Engineers and tech specialists congregated there to salvage and repurpose alien technology for human use. Their efforts not only supported reconstruction, but also provided the resistance with advanced tools and weapon systems. The Corvin technology, once a symbol of oppression, was now a key asset in humanity's resurgence. Amidst these rebuilding efforts, Elena also prioritized the establishment of communication networks between the liberated cities and other parts of the world. She envisioned a global network that could share resources, information, and support, knitting together a fractured world with the threads of cooperation and unity. As physical reconstruction progressed, Elena initiated community engagement programs to heal the psychological scars of the war. Town hall meetings were held, allowing residents to voice their concerns and contribute to the planning process. Support groups were formed to help individuals cope with trauma and loss, facilitated by psychologists and counselors who had themselves experienced the horrors of occupation. The challenge of governance also came to the forefront. With the Corvin's strict control structures dismantled, there was a vacuum that needed to be filled with fair and effective leadership. Elena supported the formation of interim councils, guiding them in the principles of democratic governance and encouraging the participation of all citizens in the decision-making process. However, as the cities began to find their footing, new challenges emerged. Isolated Corvin units, cut off from their command structures, launched sporadic attacks on the recovering communities. Elena responded by organizing defense militias, training civilians to protect their neighborhoods and respond to threats swiftly. These militias played a crucial role when a large-scale Corvin counterattack targeted Moscow. The invaders hoped to exploit the winter conditions and strike a blow that would demoralize the resistance. However, the well-prepared militia, supported by resistance fighters, repelled the assault, proving that the cities were not just recovering, but becoming strongholds of human resilience. The successful defense against the Corvin counterattack was celebrated as a symbol of human tenacity and adaptability. It boosted morale across the globe and demonstrated that the reborn human cities could defend themselves. As Elena reviewed reports of the celebrations, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment, but remained acutely aware of the challenges ahead. The war was not over, and each victory brought new difficulties. However, with each step forward, the vision of a restored Earth became clearer, driving her and her compatriots to continue their fight for freedom and rebirth. In the aftermath of the Corvin's failed counterattack on Moscow, it became clear to Captain Elena Mirov that while the human resistance had grown in strength and confidence, the war was far from over. The Corvin were regrouping and recalibrating their strategy, and Elena knew that the resistance needed to evolve as well. It was time to expand the scope of their alliances and seek new partners. The opportunity presented itself unexpectedly. A transmission was intercepted from a distant star system, originating from another species that had also suffered under Corvin oppression. This species, known as the Avarians, had been battling the Corvin on a different front, fighting for their own survival. Their message was a plea for help, a request for an alliance against their common enemy. Elena saw this as a pivotal chance not only to strengthen Earth's military capabilities but also to form a strategic interstellar alliance. After discussions with her advisors and extensive preparations to ensure security and sincerity, she responded to the Avarians, proposing a summit on neutral ground. The chosen location was an abandoned space station in the asteroid belt, once a research facility before the war. It was remote and defensible, ideal for such a delicate meeting. Elena, accompanied by a small team of her most trusted officers, traveled to the station, where they were met by the Avarian delegates. The Avarians were avian in appearance, with feathered bodies and sharp, intelligent eyes. Their leader, Counselor Rael, expressed gratitude for the human response. Through translators, they shared their experiences and losses, which mirrored those of humanity in many ways. The discussions were initially cautious, as both sides assessed each other's intentions and capabilities. Over hours of dialogue, Elena and Rael outlined the atrocities committed by the Corvin against their respective peoples. They shared tactical information, resources, and technology. The Avarians possessed advanced shielding technology, which could greatly enhance the Resistance's defensive capabilities, while humans offered insights into exploiting the Corvin's reliance on their communication networks. The summit concluded with the signing of the Terra-Avar Pact, a formal alliance between Earth's resistance and the Avarian forces. The pact included agreements on mutual defense, shared technology, and coordinated attacks against the Corvin. Upon returning to Earth, Elena presented the details of the new alliance to her leadership council and the global resistance. The news was met with mixed emotions, hope and enthusiasm for the strengthened position against the Corvin, but also concern about the implications of an interstellar alliance and the responsibilities it entailed. To cement the alliance, joint training sessions were arranged, with Avarian military units visiting Earth to train alongside human fighters. These sessions not only helped both species understand each other's tactics and capabilities, but also built camaraderie and trust among the troops. The first test of the Terra-Avar Pact came sooner than expected. Intelligence reports indicated a major Corvin fleet moving towards a strategic sector that could threaten both Avarian and human territories. Together, the newly allied forces planned a preemptive strike, utilizing a combination of human guerrilla tactics and Avarian aerial superiority. The operation was a resounding success. The Corvin fleet was ambushed and significantly damaged, with the Avarians and humans managing to capture several Corvin ships, turning them over for joint research. The victory solidified the alliance, proving that together the Avarians and humans were a formidable force against the Corvin. It also sent a powerful message across the galaxy, that unity and cooperation could challenge even the most dominant oppressors. Energized by this new alliance and the victory it had already achieved, Elena felt a renewed sense of purpose. The path to freeing Earth and helping its new allies was long and fraught with challenges, but it was now clearer and more hopeful than ever. The successful operation with the Avarians marked a turning point in the war against the Corvin. Now, with a robust interstellar alliance and renewed morale, Captain Elena Mirov prepared for what she hoped would be the final series of confrontations to reclaim Earth and secure freedom for her allies. The global resistance, now bolstered by advanced Avarian technology and tactical insights, was ready to launch a comprehensive assault on the Corvin's remaining strongholds on Earth. Elena and her leadership council planned a multi-pronged offensive, codenamed Operation Final Stand. The operation aimed to simultaneously strike at the heart of the Corvin occupation, targeting their main command center in what was once Beijing, their largest supply depot in the Sahara, and their primary communication relay, stationed in orbit around Earth. The stakes were incredibly high, and the planning was meticulous. Elena divided her forces into three main contingents. The first, led by herself, would assault Beijing. The second, commanded by Lieutenant Tomas, would take on the Sahara depot. The third, a joint human-Avarian team, would handle the orbital relay, a mission that would require precise coordination between space and ground-based forces. As D-Day approached, tension mounted among the resistance fighters. They were aware of the risks involved and the potential for heavy casualties. But the spirit of determination and the desire for freedom outweighed their fears. Elena spent the night before the offensive meeting with her teams, offering words of encouragement and reinforcing the importance of their mission. At dawn, Operation Final Stand commenced. Elena's team advanced on Beijing, utilizing stealth technology to infiltrate the city's outer defenses. The Corvin, caught off guard by the sudden and synchronized attacks on multiple fronts, scrambled to mount an effective defense. The battle for Beijing was fierce. Urban warfare raged through the streets, with resistance fighters engaging Corvin troops in close quarters. Elena led from the front, her tactical acumen and leadership inspiring her forces to push forward. After hours of intense fighting, they breached the command center, securing critical data and technology that could ensure a lasting victory. Meanwhile, in the Sahara, Tomas's contingent faced a different challenge. The depot was heavily fortified and located in an open desert, offering little cover. However, the resistance fighters used mobility to their advantage, striking at multiple points simultaneously and using the harsh environment as a weapon against the Corvin. The orbital team, including both human and Avarian fighters, executed a daring spacewalk to sabotage the Corvin communication relay. Their success crippled the Corvin's ability to coordinate their planetary defenses, ensuring that the ground assaults faced less resistance. As the sun set on what was the longest day of the resistance, the results were clear. The Corvin's grip on Earth had been shattered. Their command infrastructure was in ruins, their logistical networks disrupted, and their moral authority obliterated. The remaining Corvin forces, realizing their untenable position, began to surrender or retreat from the planet. In the aftermath, a grand assembly was held in Beijing, now a symbol of Earth's hard-won freedom. Elena addressed the gathered crowd of humans and Avarians, her speech broadcasted worldwide. She spoke not just of victory, but of the future, of rebuilding, of forming a new, inclusive government, and of establishing Earth as a beacon of hope and resistance against tyranny throughout the galaxy. The war had left deep scars on Earth and its people, but it had also sown the seeds of new beginnings. As Elena looked out over the sea of faces, both human and alien, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment and responsibility. The fight for Earth was over, but the task of building peace was just beginning.